Hey YouTube, Coy from Over Mountain Games here, back with a brand new month and a brand new State of the Game update for Everhart Tabletop. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So, as of late, there have been a lot of changes. I've essentially rewritten the entire book. That includes everything written before. Some mechanics are brand new, and some mechanics have just evolved into something else. And extensive rewrites, so that means that I have gone through and set up some rough formatting for the future for when we eventually port it to PDF, and have put in some rough layouts of how I want it to look in terms of defining things in a proper order. That also included some rules cleanups. I further defined some things like charges and other effects. That included rules cleanups. That way it would be more clear the intent of what is being done. The game size has changed. It is no longer attempting to be an Age of Sigmar or Warhammer 40k size game, and it is not trying to be anything larger for sure. That has moved into a skirmish setting. Less so of a true skirmish setting. It's not Warcry or Infinity or Marvel Crisis Protocol. It is more of a skirmish based size. Hard to define, honestly. Because if you really think about it, it's not as small like Warcry. You would have more units than Warcry even consists of, and they do more things, and they don't act completely individually. We'll get into that in a second. For instance, now you have two types of units. You have individual units, like characters, behemoths, and you now purchase troops individually with their upgrades and all, as such individually. They are considered an individual unit. That is, until you get 5 for light infantry of the same type, along with the same upgrades. If they have the exact same everything, they form into a combined unit of 5. It's hard locked, unless you have a personnel upgrade, which lets you go above the 5. As well, heavy infantry now caps at 3. Same rules. If they have personnel upgrades, they can go above 3 and it still copies it correctly and things of that nature. But it is hard capped at 3 and 5 for heavy and light infantry, respectively. I think this is going to be really interesting because now it lets you completely customize if you want your army to be combined or if you want to activate everything separately. That being said, it does not, I want to set it up to where it does not punish you for having less activations because combined units are forced. Once you hit 3 for heavy infantry, say it's 3 city knights with the same lances, the same upgrades, mount-wise, everything, they form a unit. There's no way to stop that unless you bought 2 with a training upgrade, and then you bought a third without one, or you bought one with 2 different ones or something to that effect. They would not form a unit. They would be individual. You control them and activate them individually. When they're combined, they're controlled and activated simultaneously, all in one. Along with our rewrites and rules cleanups, it is going to be near our alpha. A little bit more on that later. Damage reduction has changed. Instead of being an automatic hit taking away damage, it's now random. Every point of damage, assuming they have an armor upgrade on the unit, now has a target number. Every point of damage you take, you roll a d6 for each point of damage. So if you take 10 damage, you roll 10d6. And then your goal is the target number. That being said, shields now give you a +1 to that roll. And there will be other effects like spells, magic items, and stuff like that that will do the same thing. I think this change is going to be awesome because it can reduce to 0, but it could also have the chance of getting all your damage through. It's completely random and you don't really know. The whole point of it is make your save better. If you don't have armor, but you don't have a shield, you actually have a +1. Thus, you actually do have a 6. You do get an armor save, or a damage reduction roll, as it would be known as, in those terms. New Army Identities. So I've been working a lot on creating new identities for all the armies. I had some specific training upgrades in mind that I wanted to put in for people to take on a specific nation's army or what have you. But I wanted to extend that a little further. So now a lot of them have an additional resource that fuels those trainings. For instance, you have the Realm of Blood, who has rage points. Those rage points fuel their rituals, which were their trainings. So now they have rage. You spend the rage on whatever ritual you have, and you go from there. These don't take actions. They can be used at any time. So it's an additional thing you can just do whenever. Some have a specific, point. You would have to do it on an activation, but it doesn't take an action. You'd have to do it at the start of turn, or start of battle round, or end of battle round, anywhere in there. The Realm of Lore actually has mana points, which can go away, and every turn they roll to see how much mana they have for the turn, and they spend that on additional abilities other than spells to either buff your spells or your units or something like that. Free Cities of Glorious have their positioning, so they don't necessarily have a resource that fuels their formations, but instead they need to be maybe in base contact with one of their own guys to get the bonus, or they need to be engaged to get the bonus, something to that effect. They don't necessarily have to spend points on it, but you have to make sure they stay together. So it's a little bit less free form. You can't exactly go as you want and do what you want. You need to stay together. But that's kind of the whole point of the free cities, right? Is a lot of people staying together to survive against the netherworld. So felt like it was very flavorful in that sense. Speaking of flavor, except it's actually favor. Favor is the new currency used to purchase troops, items, magic items, upgrades of all kind. So favor it can be anything, right? You could narratively do it away as you have some supplies you need to hand out, or you want to do favors for someone, or you have maybe you're a local celebrity, so then you cash in some of your favor that sense, and get people to come over to your side and help and fight with you. It's going to be pretty big in this and in the role-playing section, because a character would essentially increase their favor amongst their people, essentially becoming a hero or a renowned adventurer or what have you, to be able to call upon the forces that you need to fight your enemy. Same thing would be with if you were building an army, right? Because there's no money in Cynthia, how else are you going to get people to fight for you? Necessity is a pretty good thing, but they still need to follow a right general. And the good generals are going to be the ones with the most amount of favor. Which would bring us into world building. World building has had a lot of changes as of late, and I want to get into them, but first, I want to talk about our alpha. So there are alphas coming up, and I want everyone to participate that can. You will go to our Everhart subreddit, which will be in the link down below in the description, and you can see exactly the changes going on throughout time. You'll get them here, of course, on YouTube, but you'll also get them on the subreddit in a little bit easier fashion. You get it in text where I can update faster from my phone or my computer. As well, you will get the links to the Google Drive, which will hold the alpha and beta copies of Everhart. Now, eventually, once we release, you'll want to actually go and purchase the correct PDFs. We will be a full digital game, but the full copies are going to give you updates throughout time. So when we move into my plans down the road, secrets, of course, you will have access to all of that because you made the purchase once. And then you can have your buddies purchase as well, and they get access to it. And, should we ever, and in the million years of what I want, achieve my goals of having a very developing story in a competitive tabletop game be realized, you will essentially have, say, a tournament packet that has the version number that you need to be able to play. So essentially everything will receive updates when they can, and we can push it out in real time. You don't have to edit a hard copy book or something with an FAQ and errata. It goes straight into it with a devlog of all changes. Very important. As well, it is going to be a live developing game. I want feedback. I want all the feedback. Positive, negative, neutral, all. I want it all. It's really my first true foray into developing a large-scale game, especially a war game. I've messed around here and there in the past, as well as developing small micro role-playing games, but nothing to this scale. And I want all the feedback possible. Again, good, bad, negative, even trolling to an extent. Just give it to me. So the world of Mycynthia is very diverse. There is no money, but everybody puts in their part that can, and even those that don't put in their part in other ways. Everyone feels kind of bound by a specific duty to their people to push their progress along. They feel as if the netherworld is threatening that. More into that a little bit later. They all work, they all give a tax of their whatever their yield is, and that is redistributed throughout their nations, locally and kind of regionally. Citizenship is very easy to obtain. You just go and you sign, you register saying, hey, I'm here, essentially. I'm living out here. Here are a couple of landmarks around. Check us out. You might have a farm. Other people might come out. You could end up forming another town. But essentially, everyone gets helped and everyone gets assisted no matter what. All occupations are valid, and I do mean all of them. Even ones in our world that may not seem valid are. And you'll see what I mean once the full book releases. I developed a couple more of the small factions, which will appear a little bit in the mobs and mercenaries neutral book that almost anyone can take. And a couple of examples are kind of the following. First, we have the East Bay Acquisitions Company. East Bay Acquisitions Company is a magical item finding company, essentially. They find all manners of magic items. They go into ancient ruins that might have existed from who knows when. They go into the netherworld and find theirs, although they're very careful on that. And they essentially dive and delve for these things to help progress these civilizations here. That being said, they aren't greedy. If they see something is about to come, like you pick up a Indiana Jones like artifact and a nether portal opens up, nope, they will contain the area, they'll put it back, they'll seal it, they will do everything in their damnedest power not to disturb it, because there's no true quest for power, right? The power will come to those who study ethically and achieve things. They don't need to force these netherworld artifacts onto them for power. Some nations, like the Cloudtop Sky Wardens, do go in and mine netherite from the netherworld, but it's out of necessity for their world to survive. They aren't going in there trying to take it from them because it's a resource not truly cared about by most of them, except the nether vermin, which the nether vermin do hate them for doing that. But they are crazy kind of nether rats. The Sky Wardens need this stuff to power their homes, to power siege machines, stuff like that, to protect against the Netherworld, because the Netherworld's coming either way. You might as well try and take something of theirs to assist in the fight. Magic items, though, can be too dangerous. Netherite doesn't have a latent, powerful ability in it. It doesn't have a magical ability in it, but magic items obviously do. So the East Bay Acquisition Company, they will bring the magic items to a trading post and trade them away. You can do favors to trade for it, and really just anything in general labor that you might need to get a magical item from them. They also freely hand them out to schools for testing, because schooling is free amongst all of Macynthia. Everybody can learn. As long as you're a registered citizen or not, they still have free classes. Just come in, test it under highly supervised wizards and magicians, and go about your day. They will also let students test them privately. Again, very supervised. And all around, they're just there to make sure everybody has a safe environment to practice magic in. But that's their entire purpose. The reason why they're the East Bay is because they're closer to Xanactar, which is the atoll, essentially, outside of the main island that has kind of the more ancient and more magical feel. There's like pools of magic there, and all sorts of nature that's changed from the mainland of Macynthia. The mainland of Gloria. Gloria Wood Trading Company and the Couriers League. So the Gloria Wood Trading Company is for everybody. They trade with all nations, and they will deliver the redistributed items to you. They have portable trading posts they bring around on oxen's backs and wagons and stuff like that, so you can trade with them. If you're way out in like a countryside, you can go to your local town's trading post and trade everything in, which is also where your local like magister's office would be, is with the trading post. So you can send letters back and forth, because the Couriers League is there as well. They're the mail system. Very important. They'll get a parcel anywhere, on foot, on horse, on wagon, on dragon if they need to, which are very rare. So if you see a dragonfly overhead, it's probably not good. The Shadow Syndicate. So I really like the term syndicate. I think it's really awesome. It's usually a group of houses, or a group of gangs, or a group of what have you. The Shadow Syndicate is always under investigation, because they're always believed to be touched by the realm of greed, because they have a lot of thieves, a lot of assassins. And what would cause them to do it? Greed's a pretty heavy factor. With there not being any money in the world, but there is supplies, favors, there's a lot of stuff. It can be easy to be swept up in stuff of that nature. There's no politics. Really, they're chosen very fairly to elect to whatever leadership is included. No one's trying to backstab for it or really politicize. You very fairly elect who you want to elect to, like, say, in the Free Cities, the 13 Magisters Council is fully elected by their people, and they are kept to a high standard, unlike a lot of politicians. But the Shadow Syndicate might work for them. It could be a very interesting adventure to find. Maybe one of them's touched by greed and we didn't know it. We would like to think so, but they might start working with the Shadow Syndicate. Also, the Shadow Syndicate does not really take sides. They will work for the Netherworld, because the Netherworld's promising maybe power or something to that effect that they might want, or a spot in their new world as they come in and try and gloss it over. There's factions inside of it. It's a syndicate. There's got to be factions that want to combat against that. I think it's going to be really fun. I think it's going to be amazing role-playing status for it. I think that one's going to be one of the easiest adventures to write and to be involved in. And I absolutely love it. And I really can't wait to flesh this one out a little bit more. The Interocular Portal Network is one of my favorites. So I always had the idea specifically from The Witcher 2 to be exact. If you remember towards the end, spoiler alert, you stop the mage that you've been hunting the whole time, and she's about to cast a portal spell, but she needs a flawless diamond, and hers has cracks in it. Well, I let her die because Geralt would probably do that. And she exploded, but I was like, what could that really have been? What if you had mages that knew short-range teleportation magic, but they could cast it through that diamond and cast it on anyone that's there? Essentially, a amount of focusing lenses, almost like a old eyeglass that might have like folded down to really focus. What if you had a large scale one that was like a tower, planetarium type, that could focus the spell through the diamond, flawless? Because if not, your essence is scattered, which they look after it very, very clearly. And it shoots your essence out, and then you're delivered to a platform somewhere else. Wherever these other networks might be, which would be on all of the nations, right? But it is a extremely easy service. All you do, diamond, teleport. Like, that's it. So again, no money. And it's mostly based on favors, but in trade, what's your 1-to-1? Diamond to teleport. Like, that's it. And then you go wherever you need to. And then Shroom Town, which is part of the Undermountain Convergence Nation. So they're a group of goblins that live down in the middle of the tunnels, who essentially work in a large mushroom town. The cost to enter is very measly. It's 1 mushroom of any kind. Doesn't matter if it's a little baby Bella or a large mushroom you might have found, like a wild cap or something, some fantasy mushroom that you found out in the world. You hand that into one of the guards when you're entering. They collect it. It's thrown into the Shroom Vault. Shroom Vault is taken monthly and redistributed for everybody to use. There are still shroom farmers inside, and all sorts of manner of like shroom alchemists and weaponry and stuff made that is taken and put into the Shroom Vault, redistributed, and made. And they also have to trade with the outside world. They still need cloth to make clothes. They need barrels to store these things. They still have to trade with the outside world. And they also make a lot of stuff in-house. They still have blacksmiths and stuff that work with regular metal. If you live underground, metal will be pretty easy to get. But their leader is the Shroom Guide. He's an elected leader who is said to be elected by like a spiritual force, but also could be elected by the people, and kind of in tandem. And anyone entering meets the Shroom Guide. The Shroom Guide is a regular civilian, really. He just answers questions and concerns that arise throughout the weeks. For the most part, he works farms just like everybody else. His name's Greg Boz, by the way. And he answers concerns and questions maybe like a local magistrate would in anywhere else, like the free cities. And he answers those questions, concerns, leads his people, goes about his day, continuing to work just like everybody else. Those that give the mushroom, going back to earlier, are considered to be citizens for their time of this day, so they have access to all the care that a regular citizen would, unless they do something illegal, obviously murder or assault or something like that, very illegal. And they're thrown in one of their prisons and maybe sent back to where they're registered at. Now, you can register. You can live amongst these goblins very easily. They love people staying and helping out and working with them and living with them. It is a life's greatest pleasure to meet someone brand new from the outside world. A lot of these goblins don't really leave the Undermountain Convergence. But once they do, and they start traveling, it is a very lovely experience, and they get out and have fun just like everybody else, because they are just like everybody else. I think goblins in a lot of fantasy are seen as these evil little vile creatures that live in caves and stuff that are these are supposed to be like tribals, and why do they have to be that? And certainly they don't need to be that anymore. They could be citizens just like the rest of us, and I mean, there's nothing stopping them from doing that except for the creators of those fantasy worlds, which if that's what they want to do, I mean, whatever. You don't necessarily have to play it. But these goblins are friendly and fun. They just like mushrooms, and it's just kind of their only thing. Another thing in the world building is the fact that there are no borders and no land is owned by these nations. So anyone can settle on them. All they have to do is go down to their local registry and sign where they are. Like I mentioned earlier, when you sign as a citizen, you sign and register where your house is. Or if you're like a wanderer, Maid Cynthia, or you just don't want to, you don't want to have access to the taxes and stuff like that and the redistribution, you would not register. People, the couriers will come around and ask if you want to register. You can kindly tell them no. Most of them do. No one's really standoffish or defensive of where they are. They're only defensive against netherworld beings or things rising out of the grave, which are still denizens or vermin. They're defensive against those things, but not defensive against other Macenthians. I mean, or the free folk. They wholeheartedly love each other and want to see everybody progress. It also means soldiering in war is a needed and necessary activity because of the times that they live in. If they were living in an era of peace where there was no netherworld, they honestly wouldn't have armies. They would be probably one people again, or maybe separate nations. No borders though. You kind of just settle wherever, and again you pay whatever taxes are your local nation and stuff like that. It is not the same as our world can be. And it's fantasy. It doesn't have to be. For instance, I really like the fact that there are no standing armies truly outside of the fact that the netherworld exists. Everyone in this, every populace is armed. They have a sword or a crossbow at home in case demons just pop up, a nether portal opens and they need to rush to war, they can. And soldiering is that necessity. The only way you might be a soldier when you return home is for guards. Guards strictly keep the peace. If there's a fight that breaks out, they're like, hey guys, just go home, stop it, it's whatever. Because it still happens. I mean, animosity can still happen. They do arrest people for violent crimes, which I alluded to earlier. Murder, assault, theft, which theft isn't looked down on that much. Some people, even though sometimes they miss out on the redistribution of taxes or something, so they turn to maybe going into your grain silo and picking up some grain, and going home. For the most part, if someone catches them, they just help them make a meal and send them back home. Like, hey man, just go home. We'll make a meal together. Get you fed, so you're no longer hungry. Enjoy your trek home, and they're nice about it. People are stealing supplies. It's reported, not really followed up on, because the supplies don't belong to anyone. Truly, they belong to the people. So if they're needed to be used, and they investigate and they find out who did it, and they find no malicious intent involved, specifically dealing with the realm of greed, because the realm of greed reaches out to everybody and tries to get them to be greedy people, where they're naturally ungreedy free folk. They're people that want to see everyone succeed, so they don't take more than they need. They do what they need and have to. So yeah, if any kind of thing goes missing from a trading post, it's marked there, and then they have the local guards, not authorities, because they don't have authority over everyone. They're the same as everybody else. It's alerted to the guards. Guards write it down. They follow up on it, on any kind of leads or investigations that need to be involved. Might even help the players out in the role-playing game. And then you would follow up on it. And if there's no malicious intent, you just tell them to keep it. And then it's marked off. It's also not included in the year following's taxes, so you don't really have to worry about that. Companies truly exist more as like a union, just to bring like-minded workers together. And then they put their products in the trading post to be able to trade, or they send it off for the war effort or what have you. But for the most part, there's no money again. Not trying to turn a profit. They're not trying to screw out any employees. They're just people that have come together. Like say you're a log mill worker, and you were sawing logs all by yourself, but you find a couple of other guys that wanted to do it, or ladies, or anything that were wanting to make saw or logs with you, or planks out of those logs. You just decided to go work with them, and you formed a company. Essentially, you just call yourselves the log millers, and you're like more like a union. You can have multiple ones and stuff like that. It doesn't matter. You just register your company. But you have like-minded individuals that make the product, goes into the trading post, and helps everybody out. You're not selling it. You're not really doing anything for it. You're just helping out everybody. So I think that is a little bit more than what I was wanting to give away. It's been up here, and I've got it on some of my Google Docs, but I can't quite show you yet. You gotta be ready for the new book, the core book. Once it releases, there's going to be so much information in it. I'm excited. I keep being surprised at how much information is actually coming out, because I keep writing and I'm like, this isn't a lot. And I'm sometimes struggling to find up like description stuff, but then it'll start flowing, and the world building stuff just flows. I think the rules should stay light on descriptions and light on just needed information. I know it reads like a textbook, and it's not always the best. Sometimes you want a little lore tidbit sprinkled in, and those can still happen, right? And they will happen. But the lore should be in its own place, and I highly suggest people check it out, because the lore is going to be crisp. Of course, I'm the developer. I think so. But the rules need to be light and developed, because it is a wargaming system as well. And people that don't care about lore need to know how to play the game very clearly. Don't forget, like, subscribe, or face the wrath of the netherworld, and remember to ring that screaming bell. Oh yeah, and if you're buying stuff on Amazon, check out my affiliate link below. I get a little bit of commission, and it goes all back into Everhart. Art, lore, text, all of it going in. I look forward to seeing you guys next week, maybe with a painting video. We shall see. Take it easy. Happy gaming.